Yeah, if the last guy had like a low efficiency headphone and the volume was up,
Yeah.
now you plug in your high efficiency and it goes boom in like 3 seconds. It's kind of too late. We had a customer that emailed us the other day, and he had a pretty good question. He was asking about what do I do at my first can jam? Like, how do I handle it? Do you want to read it?
Yeah, sure.
Yeah, let's specifically see what he was talking about.
He says, hello, do you have any tips for someone who goes to can jam or a similar event for the first time? Is it even possible to compare what you hear there to the equipment you have at home? Fair questions.
Yeah.
And I think something that bears some degree of addressing.
The first thing we got to think about is our first can jam. What's it like? If you've never went to a place that has literally 100 plus places to listen to headphones.
It's
Where
a
the
little
hell do you
overwhelming.
start,
First of all, our first can jam, there wasn't that many places.
Yeah, it was like 5 or 10.
Yeah, it's like small, but
None of this existed.
yeah. Well, it did. It was just small.
Only if you were Doctor Who.
Well,
You'd have to be able to go forward in time.
if you go to a show now, you could expect there to be almost every headphone that's relevant today. And you could hear pretty much everything, right? You could go around and most people are excited for you to come up and try their stuff. They want you to try the stuff. And some people are a little pushier than others, but for the most part, people are very reasonable and they have no issue with you showing up, doing what you want to do, try your stuff. But there is a few best practices. And sometimes you see people that are very courteous of these things, but other times a little less so. Generally speaking, you want to ask for permission if you want to try your own gear on somebody else's
If
setup.
you want to
right?
disconnect anything.
If you're going
Yeah.
around to change
Yeah.
things, you're unplugging things, moving things around, best practice to ask. It's reasonably courteous to do so. And if you're changing out gear, it's also a good idea to turn the volume all the way down on the amp before you unplug a headphone. Because sometimes you'll see at a table, they'll have a bunch of headphones. And there'll be people around you changing out headphones as well. But if you're unaware, it's a good idea to turn the volume all the way down.
Well, we call that etiquette.
Right.
There's a couple rules, but yeah, you don't want to be blasting full signal out of an amp and then start swapping loads on it, or some 1/4-inch connectors could be a little flaky.
Well, there's kind of two issues with that. It could be that the amp is less than happy with the volume cranked and the headphone suddenly disappearing. That's less common. The bigger issue is the sensitivity and efficiency, sensitivity and impedance between headphones can be pretty considerably different.
Yeah, if the last guy had like a low efficiency headphone and the volume was up,
Yeah.
now you plug in your high efficiency and it goes boom in like 3 seconds. It's kind of too
I
late.
could damage a headphone if it's very loud for the other
Well,
headphone.
check for a gain switch, maybe.
Yeah, well, yeah, but even then, you shouldn't really do that with gear. You let the people who
Yeah, I
run
guess,
the booth
yeah.
do that. You start switching things on people, now you're asking for some.
Well, I guess
You don't know what's going to happen.
to the question, he said compared to his gear at home. I guess that is the thing. At least with can jams, is you could bring some gear with you.
Sure.
Especially if you run a
Most
portable.
people bring their
or
headphones.
That makes it easy. Then
Yeah.
you're apples to apples.
Some
right
people
there.
have their own portables and they want to
Yeah.
try your headphones to see if it'll power,
Yeah.
if their portable gear will power your headphone. So, yeah.
Usually that's a good start. It's, I think, somewhat possible to compare the gear you're here to show to what you have at home, but it can be difficult because it's a different environment. You most likely traveled to get there, so maybe you feel a little less than your best, and it can be loud. So best practice is, if you can, bring your own headphones with you. If you're trying to compare things, even if you're trying to compare headphones or amps or something like that, having your own headphones as a reference it makes it easier for you to be more comfortable with the gear faster. You can choose to bring your own music if you want. A lot of places are willing. If you have it on like a flash drive, you could play it. But so many places now do streaming. As long as you know what you want to hear, you could have a little list.
Well, that's the thing. It's almost getting impractical to play other people's music because now we're running iPads and stuff. Even a thumb drive, we
it
can't
is
even
getting a
plug
little
in
harder,
anymore.
Right.
We used to bring, everyone had laptops. Now
Yeah.
it's like, here,
Yeah.
stream whatever you want. So it is getting more difficult. But you could try it. Some people might have laptops or computers.
Well,
they can
and some
plug
DACs just have USB ports on them too that you just plug
Ah,
flash drives in.
yeah. You know how that goes.
Switch the source. I know.
I think the safe bet is to do both. Like if you know you really want to hear this,
in. Yeah.
bring it with you. But probably want to also have a list of what you want to listen to. And it may sound silly to why you need a list, but so many people struggle with picking songs when they're there.
Right.
It's
I know I do.
inevitable. Everyone's
Yeah,
sitting
right.
there like, you sit down, you're like, oh, what do I want to listen
Yeah, you
to?
tell the customer, all right, well, there's a search box there. Just type in what you want. You're like,
You
okay.
can find anything, right? And they
it was
can't
just
think
like,
of anything.
We were at our local dealer a couple, like 2 weeks ago or whatever. And you're like, play whatever you want. And I'm like, and then I'm like, you can play whatever you want too. And you're like, I don't know. It's like, pick any song.
Yeah, I'm just so used to having like my curated pile of tracks at home,
Right.
that I just hit play and it just goes, and I don't
Yeah,
even
you're in
think
a
about what
foreign
I'm listening
environment.
to.
Yeah. Well, or curated for you by title or
Yeah, right.
or whatever.
Yeah, right. The lazy man's method. It is funny how that works.
You just get used to it where it just play.
But yeah, it's a good idea to have a list of what you like if you're not going to bring it in, and and I mean expect to not everyone wants things plugged and unplugged at shows, so don't bring like your own DAC and think people are going to swap that out, or equipment. You're not going to see that. You're really not going to see it. Oh, I want to try my DAC with their amp. It's like
In certain situations, you can get away with that. Less so in a headphone meet. But if you show up really early, it's very possible that there's no one there. They'll be much more accommodating if you want a little bit more
or
time.
after the show, maybe.
Well, to explain that from an exhibitor standpoint, like us working the show, is that once we get things working at a show, it's bad karma to touch it. Like, you leave it alone. The most you do is turn it off at night, or leave it on all night. A lot of times, a lot of stuff we'll just leave on as long as there's power existing. So it's not a good idea to show. We always kind of like, you got to do whatever you got to do, but rub the rabbit's foot, whatever brings you good luck, that things don't go wrong at a show. So we tend not to like swapping gear at shows. It's just same when we did speakers back in the day. People went, oh, let's try these speakers or that speaker.
So that's a lot worse, though.
Yeah, that's
big
way
heavy
worse.
things, moving them around.
Yeah, you got to
tip over,
power the amp
potential.
down, and it's right. You're just asking for something to go wrong sooner or later when you do that multiple times.
We have done it, moved speakers, but I wouldn't recommend it.
Yeah, well, headphones is a lot easier, but still, usually. You got to consider the fact that these systems that these vendors set up are probably optimized. Like, we choose the cables to go with this stuff, right? Because we make cables too. We choose the power cords to go with the stuff. So, you're looking at, even though it's a noisy environment, you're probably looking at least with our setups, you're looking at some of the best you could do with them, right? And to change out gear with that, well, now you're putting in a piece of gear that the system wasn't optimized for that piece of gear. It didn't have no idea you're throwing a foreign object at it, and it's not fair to either side. So most vendors aren't really good too much about swapping system components out, when it's all set to go. There's invariably something will go wrong. Break a cable.
Yeah, unfortunately, it does seem inevitable that things break at shows for whatever reason. Not so much as like, weird, unforeseen explosions, but inevitably you have problems you've never had before and you're at a show. And it turns out to be this switch was in the wrong position, this wasn't plugged in fully, or this cable was wrong, or like some weird thing like that. You never had this problem before, but now you're at a show. It turns out somebody moved something you didn't expect or whatever, and you have a problem you haven't seen before, and you try and diagnose it, and people are asking you questions, and this other system breaks at the same time, and this guy's having an issue with streaming.
Yeah.
Well, it's
And
always
it's a headache,
the internet.
right?
There's nothing you can do about that, but yeah, Wi-Fi, having a problem
So
with
we
it.
have our own set of show rules when it comes to an exhibitor, where it's like, don't even mess with it if it works.
Yeah.
Everything's good. Let's leave it alone. And because you're not home, like something.
You don't have the support.
Something goes wrong here. It's like, oh, no big deal. Let's go there and get another cable or go get that. Oh, no big, another amp. No big deal. But at a show, when something goes wrong, that system's
We have
down.
what we have, right?
Yeah. So anyway, yeah.
Especially if there's a line that's kind
So
of practical.
that's why we're very cautious. That's why you see a lot of for a noob in terms of the first time being at a show. That's why some exhibitors are less responsive to changing things because they just don't want to do it.
They don't want to deal with it.
Yeah, it's working.
Yeah, especially like plugging stuff in, unplugging stuff. Like everything's on like long extension cords. Everybody's connected to everything.
Yeah,
There's
right.
cables going everywhere.
So you want to unplug something? Okay, where the hell is it plugged in? Over there, 20 feet away. But anyway, bottom line is that. So anyway, let's get back to like thinking about from their standpoint where he's never done this. So, you talked about turning the volume, asking before you try to swap anything out or whatever it is. Is it okay if I try my headphone on this amp? Sure, because not only that, the guy will look at your headphone and the amp will go, well, you got to watch. Maybe we got to drop gain. They'll know.
Yeah.
If they sell the amp or they deal, they'll so you got to watch the volume on this.
Yeah.
So it's always a good idea just for your own standpoint, so that you don't blow up your own damn headphone. you know. But or you might need a hell of a lot more power, and the guys are going, it's not going to work on that. We don't. Well, this amp isn't made for that headphone. You're going to need to go and use that amp, you know, because otherwise you get bad reviews, you get bad press, people say, well, it sounded like shit. An amp, well, the amp wasn't made for that headphone. It's not. You got to use that one or this one, you know.
Yeah, I remember one time I got like warned a lot when we were up at the HiFi. It was in Munich. We were at HiFi. We were getting one of their amps, and you know we never figured out how to use it. You had to like hold down a button combination or something, and it would switch into line out.
Colors and stuff.
Yeah, it would change to like line out instead of like the volume. Yeah. And I was just fiddling with it plugged in while listening to music, and the one guy from HiFi was there, and I switched it to line out. He's like, oh my god, because he thought I was gonna it could blow your headphones up. I'm like, it's only 2 volts, it's fine. But yeah, it's like, scared me. Yeah. It came out of nowhere.
Yeah. Yeah, we don't worry too much about blowing up headphones. Yeah. It would have to be a pretty heavy unit to be it's not going to be a portable device blowing up our headphones. But by the same token,
maybe one day.
That's the problem. One day, but that's the problem with walking up to our booth with your headphone. Is we're at full gain, half volume on amps that are made for multi watts. And you walk up there with this high efficiency, you got to be really careful.
Well, usually if you got something that's high efficiency, they know. Yeah. They're like, you're not just willy-nilly.
But not someone who's never done this before.
Well, yeah, that's true.
Thinking about the first time I've ever been to a show with amps that do watts and watts of power. So, yeah. Anyway, that's really caution. Caution is something that you want to do. And, be patient, too. Patience is a virtue.
Well, there's going to be lines a lot of times, and you may have to wait. Not everyone is as polite as others when waiting in line, but generally you could get to hear pretty much everything you want at a show if you put a little bit of effort in. But occasionally, unfortunately, there's big lines for certain tables and booths. A lot of times there's big lines to talk to certain people. But it's one of the few situations where you have almost all the gear and a lot of the people in the industry there, and you could talk to them. You could try their stuff.
Well, one way to avoid lines too, if you're new at coming to shows, is try to come earlier, because usually the first hour or two of the show is not so bad, and then once you hit peak, noon or so, I mean noon to 3 is like everybody's there. Yeah, so and I'm not saying to be there 5 minutes before. We're not even there yet. You don't have to be super early, but I'm just saying as you get there earlier.
You have an hour or two where it's light usually. Yeah, it's quieter and there's fewer people.
I mean, it's not necessarily true, but usually.
Usually. Or the last day of the show, if the 2-day show, the second day is usually, like a Sunday is usually quieter than a Saturday. So in this case with Can Jams, usually Sunday, if you have a choice, a Sunday would probably be a better day it's probably not as busy as a Saturday.
Yep.
But everyone thinks that way nowadays, so sometimes everyone shows up on a Sunday, but usually it's been Sundays are a little quieter. So might be now if you got 2 days, then hey, have at it.
Then you're good. Yeah.
Take your time.
Well, I guess have a game plan. I mean, you would know that the exhibitors are going to be there.
That
you
helps.
Probably know what you're looking for probably to listen to. So
that helps.
That's a good idea.
So start with that, and then if you get that done, then you can move on to
go to the booths that you're seriously interested in, and then if you have time remaining.
You see that a lot. People on forums, in hindsight, they say, "Oh, I missed this. I missed that. I didn't see that. I didn't know that was even here."
Yeah.
So spending 5, 10, 15 minutes, pre-plan things a little bit, figure out what do I really want to hit. Maybe write this down along with your little music list. And generally speaking, don't try and leave things for the end of the day on the last day.
Yeah.
We see people say that. They say, "Oh, I'll come back tomorrow." And they don't come back. And then inevitably you see them online, "Oh, I forgot," or "I didn't," right?
Yep.
Things got in the way. So planning to do it at the end of the day probably means it's not going to happen for a lot of people. So you got to be careful there. It's difficult for some folks to really try to get their time well utilized.
Well, at Can Jam, there's not like a ton of brands. I don't know, maybe 150. So they give you that book when you walk in, right? You get your badge, and they give you the book. And I mean, I know everyone's excited to just go in, and by all means do that, suck up some atmosphere. But maybe just look at the alphabetical index in the book, and just look at the names. And if you have a pen with you, which nobody does, just
so people leave pens
tick off where you want to go, and go by the book. I mean, if you're new at it, go and buy the book. But some people just like to walk around. Well, everyone's got signage, so you kind of know where you are.
There is a different approach, though, that I've seen. You just start on one end, go to next booth, next booth, next booth, next booth.
Yeah, totally. Yeah.
Takes a while, but you can do that. Yeah.
You got to keep things pretty short then. but
the first day,
yeah.
2 days, that requires 2 days, I think. If you're going to hit up everybody.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, because you're going to get invariably stuck at a few places where half hour goes by and you're like, oh, next thing you know, it's lunch.
Yeah.
And it's 3:30. Then you got an hour more.
Well, what also seems to happen is people get fatigued more than they expect. So they think, oh, I'll come back later. A few hours go by and they were talking with this guy. They were doing these things. They found their friends from a forum or whatever. And they come to find out that I'm not really in any shape to do all these things that I thought I was going to be able to do. And you really just run out of cognitive effort.
That's true.
You just don't feel like you could do it anymore.
Listener
right?
fatigue.
Yeah. So that is trouble. You kind of only have so much you could get done in a day. And I think a lot of people set unrealistic expectations in what could be done in a day. Maybe there's physical time, but you really won't be present for the whole day.
Yeah, you got to be a pretty much a diehard.
It's really hard to do.
If you're going to do any serious listening at the end of a day,
yeah,
I don't think I could.
Well, I
do
know,
it.
like, it's not as bad with headphones, but when we used to do speakers, you're just listening to these speakers all day, and last thing you want to do is listen to more speakers at the end of the day.
Yeah. What you want is to hit the off button and go out for a beer.
Right.
That's
so
what you need to do.
If you think you could slam it all out in one day and see everything, maybe, but depends on the type of person. I would say generally, probably not. 2 days is probably a good idea.
Yeah.
If you're really, if you're
you have a lot
gung-ho,
to
you
see.
want to just see everything. You want to be immersed in the full headphone experience.
Well,
probably teach you
not
2
to
days.
mention these can jams, they have seminars and stuff. So if you're planning on targeting any of those, that could wipe out an hour or two of prime time in a day. So bottom line is expect to run out of time at a show like this, because especially if you've never done it before, because there's so much to you. It's all new. It's like a candy store you've never been in before.
Right.
So you could really blow a day on that. No problem.
And talk to the people. A lot of people there exclusively to talk to you. Have a little chat. Talk about what you need, what you want, what you're looking for, what you think. And
True.
Some of the best people in the industry are there. So
A lot of times you're talking to the designers or the owners where you're never going to get a chance to do that anywhere else. They're not usually answering the phones. So, but they come out of the woodwork for the shows, so to speak. They're there to help you. They're there to promote the product. They're there to tell you how they made what they made. And yeah, you'd be surprised what kind of insights you can gain in that respect.
a lot of people are great and they're really honest. They're open. They'll tell you all about it. So I think it's pretty cool for that.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Think of anything else that you could tell someone that's new at this?
I don't know. After doing like so many can jams now, it's like
it shows. I know I've been doing it way too long, so it's hard to even think about what to walk into a show that you've never been to before.
But I do remember the first one we did walk into, and it was like, I don't even know what to, we didn't know anything about it.
I could think of some other things in terms of shows, particularly in this day and age. Is shaking hands has kind of died out, but it's happening again. And a good idea, regardless of whether you're shaking hands or you're touching things, you're going around and touching something that someone else just touched, blah, blah, blah. We all know the rules, but bottom line is go to the bathroom every few hours or whatever, wash your hands with soap and water, wash up. If you bring a little bottle of mouthwash, gargle, just clean your mouth out, just kill the germs. I mean, we found that works really well for us at shows where it helps us to not get something sick. This is pre-COVID even.
It's pretty common to get sick after a show. Yeah.
You just shake 100 people's hands and that's just going around and around in circles. What it is, we don't know, but it's going around and around. So yeah, the bottom line is, keep arms length from each other, which everyone kind of knows because of this now. But wash your hands every once in a while. It's not a big deal, and keep your hands to yourself. And if you got to sneeze or cough, please do it in your elbow. Don't blow it all over the gear. I mean, just think about it. It's just common sense, which I think everyone's familiar with now. But it's got to be. And if you don't feel good, don't go.
Yeah.
Or wear a mask to try to protect other people.
I think most people are going to be wearing a mask in Chicago.
Just don't go. It's not worth it. You could get 50 or 100 people sick, if you're out all day and you're not feeling good. It isn't worth it, So, but that's it's simple things that most people know. But I don't know. You never know who might not.
Most people follow best practices, and if you can, of course, try to not be 3 inches away from someone.
Yeah. We can't get in people's faces.
That makes people a bit uncomfortable.
Yeah.
It's best to just keep distance. I think everyone knows it, but it's really a good idea to show because there's so many people there, and nobody wants to get sick. Nobody wants to get sick. So, the best way to avoid that is keep your space and keep clean. That's it. And we'll do again. Us as exhibitors, we'll do the same. We're familiar with these what we call show rules. We know we're trying to stay safe.
Well, we have our own perspective on them.
Yeah.
I think other people probably.
Yeah, we hide behind the table.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, you got a table in there.
Yeah.
One thing that Linus did in his little conference that he does, what do they call it? LTT Expo or something? They have like little tags.
Oh yeah, they used
tags,
to have
whatever.
a get together every year, didn't they?
Yeah, it's COVID and
Yeah.
stuff, but I guess they're gonna do it at some point in the future.
Yeah.
I thought it was interesting. They have like little name tags or whatever, and you could check on there if you do or do not want social interaction. If you want people to talk to you, which is pretty interesting because that's a big concern for a lot of people.
Yeah.
A lot of people are nervous in these situations that it's going to be a high pressure situation, whatever, and you're going to have all these people asking all these questions, and you get a little social anxiety. And unfortunately, some exhibitors are going to be a little pushy, but most people are very reasonable and respectful. So.
Yeah, the Cajuns are pretty laid back in terms of.
It would be nice if we could standardize a little system like that because it would make it more approachable to more people.
Yeah,
Probably a little late for that for this
A
one.
little late for this.
our rule of thumb is really we're there to let you listen. You know?
Yes.
And unless we see something obvious like the fitment's wrong, we'll adjust it on your head. But that's 10 seconds. But
Right.
yeah, we're just basically
We're
there.
mostly
You
hands
listen.
off.
Yeah.
There's pros and cons there, right? Because
Yeah.
sometimes
I think
people
most
want
people
you to
are.
come
Well,
up
if
to them.
they come up to you and start talking to you, then all right,
Right.
that's
true.
pretty obvious. Then,
Yeah.
you know?
Right. Yeah.
Right. But as far as we're concerned, you do you, right? We'll be there to help you, but
Yeah, we're there. We're good with social interaction. But if you're not, that's cool too. We're not.
Right.
We're not going to bug you. You know.
Hmm?
Unless you got a question, and then you can ask it.
Right.
And that brings us to another point. Ask questions.
yeah,
If something doesn't sound right, mention it to them. Maybe
you could do that.
maybe
yeah.
there's a reason why it doesn't sound. Whatever you're playing doesn't sound right. I mean, we pretty much have explanations for a lot of crazy stuff in audio. You know,
Well,
where
I know what the most common one is. There's no audio.
Yeah.
yeah, I can't hear anything.
Yeah. It's like, the last guy turned the volume down.
Why is this buzzing?
You need to hit play.
Yeah, people flip switches and stuff like that and turn EQ on and off
Oh,
and all
that's
kinds
true.
of things like that.
Yeah.
So you got to every once in a while go through and check, is this set up right? And sometimes you get that where you were really busy talking to people, so you didn't have the effort, you didn't have the time to be
I'd
able
say
to go
about
over.
once an hour.
Yeah, but occasionally
There
you
is no
realize,
audio.
the last
Yeah.
10 people that came through here and demoed with this weird EQ profile that somebody set up or something like
Right.
that, or it was on low gain or whatever, it was configured wrong.
Yeah, the people that are most dangerous at these shows are the ones that know how to use the gear.
Yeah, they're going through and changing
Yeah,
everything.
you change it, then you walk
Yeah,
away.
change something in the
Yeah.
menu and leave. Yeah, it's like, wait a minute.
Right.
It stump us sometimes.
Try and put it back. Like you could fiddle with things, that's fine, but put it back.
Yeah, right. Yeah, if you're that smart, please do put it back the way you found it. Yeah.
Yeah.
Otherwise, it's a freaking mystery for us.
We ran into a few of those mysteries.
It happens every day. It
I don't
happens
know.
many times a day.
And it's like, it's always the same. It's like, it was just working 10 minutes ago.
Yeah.
Fine.
Yeah.
What
And
changed?
occasionally people will be really busy. If that's the case and you have a question, you want to talk, best practice probably, if you're not getting the person's attention, raise your hand. They'll most likely give you a little verbal acknowledgement or some sort of nod or something like that to signal that I acknowledge you have a question, but I'm in the middle of a conversation already. And they'll get to you when they have a chance. But
Well,
that
that-
is a common thing. You see people trying to ask a question, but it's just like three people trying to ask a question at the same time. And
Well, and it's always good to kick back then if you're not one of the first persons to ask the question and just listen to the questions
Yeah,
of someone
yeah,
else.
it's
Because a
probably the
lot of
same
times
way.
it's common.
Yeah.
Or you might learn something from what the guy asked in front of you. So, because we're usually spitting out a lot of serial information real fast at a show because it is a higher paced environment because you got a lot of people to talk to. But that being said, though, if you do ask a question, it's okay to ask a simple question while you're sitting there listening. But if you got to carry on a conversation, the best thing to do is put the headphones down so the next person can listen. Get up, tap one of us or someone at
That's
the
a fair
shoulder.
point.
And it also makes a little bit of distance between the guys trying to listen and you talking
Right.
to the guys there. I mean, it helps, If you're sitting there yelling, oh, yeah, I was one, it's hard to hear. I mean, you got noise all around you, and the guy next to you is trying to listen to this headphone. And it's bad enough it's 85 dB and background noise.
Yeah.
And then you got someone yelling in their left
And then
ear.
everybody's yelling louder because it's getting louder.
Yeah, it gets out of hand. So,
just a roar.
show etiquette is like, well, just get up and, if you want to ask a question, I mean, it's okay to ask, well, how do I play this track? It's simple. But if you want to discuss something with one of us or one of the people at a booth, yeah, it's best to get up and go to the side of the table and say, hey.
I think we covered it.
Yeah, that's it.
Seems believable.
Yeah, otherwise just be personable. It's easy. Be easy. We're all people. We
Yeah.
all just
Well,
want to get along.
I think so.
Well, most of us are people. There may be some aliens involved, but they're not cluing us in as to who they are yet. So
Ah.
we're gonna have to just wait for that story. Yeah. It'll probably be on some news channel sooner or later.
You think so?
Oh, yeah.
Any day now.
Yeah. On that note, most importantly, just try to enjoy yourselves at the show. It's a fun process. Don't try to be in a hurry. It's not going to work. Take your time. And when it's over, it's over. Next show.
There's another one. There's always another one, right?
Yeah. Next show will happen before you know it. So take care of yourselves, everybody. Thank you for watching.